Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Friday, March 11th, 2022. Glad everybody could make it in tonight and get the latest on what is going on right now with our sun. In fact, I have to update our current KP indices are now coming in at a 5 with the 24-hour max also at a 5. Just before the show, we were at a 4 kp. Now we are officially in a G1 storm. Now, this is not from the massive CME that erupted today from the sun. Now, this storm from this cloud that we had from the giant CME is expected to be here on Sunday, March 13th. And really depending on when it gets here, how late and long of a duration event this could be. It is expected to hit around 2 p.m. Eastern time on the East Coast, as far as where somewhat general idea of where the impact of this CME will be. Forecasters are forecasting a G2. Usually it takes some impressive footage and data to issue a watch higher than G1. The only concern I have with that forecast is what we see over at spaceweather.com, and let me go over to, I'll switch the screen for you guys and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. All right, so what we have here, this full halo, and what concerns me the most about this is this chart down here. Now, the little yellow circle, actually let me where's that at? Bear with me, folks. Lost my handy dandy little. All right, nonetheless, the circle, the little yellow circle here is Earth. Now, as you can see, that right where Earth is, you see that CME wave, that plasma cloud, coming right at the yellow circle, which is Earth. Now, as that cloud passes Earth, you can see here on the right, this is a zoomed in version of this. And notice how dark that line is. And you look down at the bottom of the chart, and this is 60 cubic meters, I believe it is. And 60 is pretty much the highest you can get on this chart. So, with that being said, when we usually have these G1 storms or G2 storms like we're having right now, we have a KP of 5. So we're involved with a solar wind of 405.2, which is moderate, and the density is 4.6. Usually when you have really slow solar winds, you'll see the density a little bit thicker. And when the solar winds are fast, it's usually around between 8 and 14, 15 as far as protons per cubic meter. But what I'm concerned of is with CMEs, we also know that we get a burst of solar wind, especially with one that is producing a halo cloud the size of this. It's pretty big. So let's say we have solar wind speeds 550 to 650 kilometers per second, and at 2 p.m. ish in that vicinity, we get the impact of the CME. And question is, with that much plasma impacting our magnetic field. That shot in the past, when we've had strong CMEs impact our magnetosphere, we have seen some pretty strong volcanic eruptions and strong earthquakes. So I'd have to say that I wouldn't be surprised if we got at least a G3, maybe as high as a G4. Definitely seismic activity is very, very possible across Central America and South America. In that region, probably, I'd have to guess, just based on what time and where this impact is going to be on the East Coast, which is going to be 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Therefore, I'd have to imagine somewhere in that region that's Earth-facing, it's possible we could see some seismic activity, whether it be volcano or earthquake. It could be a strong one at this point. And again, I'm only basing this on solar wind speed and density. And when you're talking about a KP indice of, let's say we see KP indices of a 7, which would be a G3 actually. Is KP of 5 is a 1, KP of 6 is a 2, and then a KP of 7 is a G3. With high solar wind speeds and that kind of pressure, that kind of density impacting Earth's atmosphere with highly charged particles, folks. Like, it's pretty substantial. And when you're talking about particles that go straight through to our core of our planet, that's the bigger concern. Not so much solar, satellites being knocked out or radio equipment going down or electric grids going down. That's not so much my concern. With a density that thick, the plasma stream that thick, it just depends on how long that lasts. And that's something I'm going to monitor really closely on Sunday. I might even go live Sunday afternoon, like at noon, and just kind of monitor this situation live. I'd love to see what time these impacts would happen, and yeah, sorry about that, folks. What time these impacts would happen, and watching the space weather instruments monitor the situation and kind of just tracking this in real time to find out indeed what kind of correlation is possible with sun activity such as something as strong as this. Now, again, I understand it was rated as an M-class flare. Not that big of a deal at all. So M-class flares happen all the time. All the time. So I'm not going to make a big spectacle of an M-class flare. But again, the thing that I worry about the most is this plasma stream. And this shows us what the forecast could be. This is from NASA. This is not, not some weird YouTube channel out here in the dark web. This is from NASA showing us. And again, I understand it's hard to find them credible with all the misinformation we catch them in most, especially with the temperatures and GISS, whatnot. But this here has not really failed us as far as the accuracy of what we're seeing from these instruments, these satellite data that we're looking at. And I just rather would be prepared than not be aware at all. So again, I'm not really concerned with electrical grid situations or anything of that nature. Satellite damage possible, GPS navigational problems possible. High latitude radio signals blockage possible. But the big thing that I'm going to watch and monitor the most is going to be what impact we see from space weather on Earth's atmosphere at that time, and does it ring us like a bell and something seismic happens. So this is an interesting event. I'm not saying it's the end of the world or anything like that, but this is something I'm pretty sure I'm going to try to monitor live if possible on Sunday, because again, just curious on what the impact of a plasma wave that thick, and if the solar wind increases above 600 kilometers per second. I mean, it's like throwing a bowling ball at the Liberty Bell, dead on in the sweet spot at 90 miles an hour. So obviously, that hence the term getting your bell rung. And that's exactly the kind of way you can visualize how the CMEs impact our magnetosphere, basically. Again, if it was 20 cubic squared or cubic meters, I wouldn't be, whatever, 15, 20, no big deal. 30, that's a little high. 60, it's pretty high on the charts too. It's actually rated at the top when it comes to, I mean, you look at the legend down at the bottom of the screen. Here, I'll scroll this up a little bit. You can see right there on the legend, 60 is the highest it goes, and clearly on the right, folks, you can see where the black, the darker color, and how deep of a color black that is. So right now, I believe that the solar wind speeds and the KP indices rising to 5. Look closely here, folks. The wave right in front of this bow shock. That is what is impacting us right now. That is why we are in a G1. So if the bow shock right here coming across in front of it is intensified from this energy, and it's causing a G1, and again, the CME is not impacted just yet. So impressive. Earth is right in the direct path of this. And again, I'm not trying to, incite panic or fear, but this is something to watch. This is the kind of conditions that I've always read about and wondered about. And now I'll be interested to observe this in real time, and hopefully, none of these satellites go down, because honestly, this plasma wave should be hitting some of this equipment by now. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of these satellites malfunction and some of the data comes in a little skewed. It would not surprise me. Again, something to watch on Sunday, and plan on us being live starting at noon or maybe a little bit earlier. I'll try to monitor this, but I kind of want to catch and watch in real time what that's going to do to our magnetosphere, and if it does trigger anything seismic. The sun is at a smooth sunspot number of 90. Again, lots of bright active regions. The source of the N-class flare is well over to the bottom right, not all the way at the very edge, but right past the center. Yeah, believe it or not, that's where this strong eruption came from. It's almost as if the CME took all the energy away from that active region. But nonetheless, we have a smooth sunspot number of 90. And let's see, last go. There's another view of the CME. Back out of this a little bit. And just, this sun has been a little active as of late. We're seeing big plumes there. Look at that. So again, the plasma density of this particular eruption is what I'm going to be watching. How fast are the solar winds? And the fact that we're seeing a G1 storm because of this bow shock that's in front of the main hit. So it's possible that we could be in a G1 storm through Saturday, and then maybe that 2 p.m. is maybe 2 a.m. Eastern time, not 2 p.m. So who knows? This thing is racing towards Earth, and I've got to expect that we could see some very high solar winds between the 550, which would be moderately high, up to 650. And anything at 700 and a KP of 7, absolutely a chance for strong, moderate to very strong seismic activity. And this will be pretty much the put up or shut up part, right? We talk about how the correlation with the sun And seismic activity is also part of the equation with the climate as well. Here's going to be the example right here. So we're going to continue to watch this as it unfolds. It could arrive early. I mean, the 2 p.m. is just a guess, but this could arrive a little early. So we'll keep our eyes on, possibly if we have to go on earlier on Sunday morning, then that's what we will do. All right, so tonight I want to cover this article, and bear with me, guys. This is something that is you might want to rewatch later and try to capture what I'm trying to talk about, because this is a long article. But I feel like this is very important because more and more research is coming out about the sun, thanks to things like the Parker probe. And now we have this simulation that is helping us understand the magnetics of our sun. Beginning of this article is claiming that a new study says that some of what we're seeing when it comes to plasma loops aren't loops at all. Instead, they're a type of optical illusion. Do we know the sun as well? We think we do. And this is a really interesting study and some of the things that they dive into. And basic understanding of the sun's corona is the outermost layer of its atmosphere is made of plasma, which contains lots of highly charged particles. That means it readily responds to electromagnetic fields. The sun has a powerful magnetic field that varies by place and time. Sometimes the magnetism drives the plasma high above the corona and forming fantastical structures called coronal loops that eventually reconnect to the sun's surface. Some of these structures can last for days or even for weeks. But this is an entirely new paradigm of understanding the sun's atmosphere, according to this author here, the lead author, Anna Malanushenko. Hopefully I didn't butcher it too bad. But the study, if correct, then it means that many of what to appear to be loops aren't loops at all. The study is based on advanced 3D simulation of the sun's corona. It allowed scientists to isolate individual corona loops by slicing the corona into distinct sections. The researchers found some loops, but the results showed that many of what looked like loops were not loops at all. Quote from the lead author, "I've spent my entire career studying coronal loops. I was excited to see the simulation would give me the opportunity to study them in more detail. But I never expected this. When I saw the results, my mind exploded." This is an entirely new paradigm of the understanding of the sun's atmosphere. And there's a little video here that we'll watch while I read on here. Coronal loops glow brightly in extreme UV radiation due to their temperature. Their shape conforms out to our understanding of magnetism, so concluding that their loops is logical. The new study shows, or doesn't show, wholly refute the existence of loops. So in other words, it's not saying we're not seeing plasma loops, just not all of it is plasma loops. But it does refute some of these. The new research makes scientists take another look at the sun and its behaviors. The authors of this paper are puzzled because the coronal loops don't seem to conform to what they know about magnetism. The sun's magnetic field lines are powerful, but they still have to weaken further from the source. So if coronal loops are indeed loops that flow along the sun's field lines, they should spread apart further they get from the sun. But that's not what happens. Images of the sun show that the loops are still thin and bright, even high above the sun. Coronal loops appear to lack expected visual expansion with height as the confining magnetic field weakens with altitude on average.
The sun is a
in the corona, authors
magnetically
point out
driven
in this paper.
star.
So if they're not
but
loops,
we can't actually see
what are they?
magnetic field lines.
And here is a visual example of what they're trying to explain to us here. And I found it interesting what this is being called. According to the research, some of the illusions are calling this a coronal veil. And their existence is making the authors question what they thought they knew about the sun. The study reminds us as scientists that we must always question our assumptions and that sometimes our intuition can work against us. Some of the loops are what they are calling projection artifacts, but it's not easy to discern between the actual coronal loops and artifacts. We demonstrate the difficulty of discerning from observations whether a particular loop corresponds to a strand in the volume or a projection artifact. We demonstrate how apparently isolated loops could devise observations even when observations from multiple viewing angles are available. Continues read on here about the research on this groundbreaking simulation developed largely by NCAR/UCAR. The simulation is called MURAM, M-U-R-A-M. It's a realistic simulation that extends from deep inside the sun, more than 10,000 kilometers below the surface, up to almost 40,000 kilometers into the corona. The physical conditions in the wide range vary widely in pressure and density. MURAM is significant because scientists hadn't been able to model such a wide range of conditions before this development of this simulation. So, the main result as far as this study is concerned is the data created by MURAM. The data sets contain the magnetic field structures and the plasma that conforms to it. MURAM allows scientists to create observations of the sun, including the corona, that are artificial. The sun's corona is optically thin, which means that it is easy to see through. While that might sound like an observational advantage, that's not necessarily the case. The optical thinness means that the structures, like coronal loops, can overlap one another when we observe the sun, and it's difficult to tell which might be on the foreground and which are in the background. The optical thinness also makes it difficult to discern how thick the loops are, and are they thick, kind of like a garden hose, or are they thin, like a ribbon viewed on the edge? MURAM is one of the most powerful solar simulations ever created. It's proven robust in many ways, but researchers are still cautious. In this paper, the team compared their MURAM data with actual images of the sun from the Atmospheric Imaging Assembly instruments on NASA's Solar Dynamic Observatory. It continues to talk about MURAM and what it thinks it's found. The authors also studied volumetric emissions to see these fainter areas between the flux tubes. Thin slices of MURAM allowed the researchers to dissect the data and look for structures and behavior that aren't apparent in real images. These slices that show somewhat appear to be coronal loops aren't loops, but are made of ridges and wrinkles in the plasma. And here is the example that they are saying. These are called ridges and wrinkles of plasma. To say, basically, we don't know everything we thought we knew about the sun. And also suggests that the sun is not as geometrically as we thought it was. This study raises questions about our understanding of the sun, but one of the drawbacks of the study is that based on a simulation. The authors acknowledge this and that the simulation play a more prominent and more significant role in astronomy and astrophysics as time goes on. So can we trust MURAM? The authors point out that MURAM is one of the most realistic simulations to date. We know this because it produces many things we can clearly observe about the sun. However, it is certainly vulnerable to criticism. Like any other simulation, we nonetheless believe that our results are relevant to the actual corona. It's compelling about the discovery is that MURAM isn't the only simulation to produce results supporting this study's conclusion. There was a study in 2005 based on different simulation found that the footprint of some coronal loops are wrinkled, not geometrically simple. The authors of this new research supports their conclusion that some coronal loops are in fact not loops. There's also another study here in 2014 based on coronal simulations also found emissions that don't look like loops. Images from that simulation showed a diffuse component, several isolated blobs, and thin, bright, sheet-like structures similar to what Murham showed in this new research. Wrinkles in those sheet-like structures produce loops that look like projection artifacts found in this new research. Check it out. The next logical question to ask is how many of the coronal loops are actual loops and how many aren't? And that's still something that's up in the air, and they're trying to better understand that. We know that designing such techniques would be extremely challenging, but this study demonstrates that the way we currently interpret the observations of the sun may not be adequate for us to truly understand the physics of our star. And this is listed under new research, the coronal veil. So here's another article, another paper, and these people are astrophysics PhDs. But here's another paper confirming the sun's magnetism's involvement with Earth and how it affects us, and just trying to study it and understand it. And I noticed in this study there's a lot more about the sun that we don't understand. And indeed, that is probably the biggest truth bomb in this community of grand solar minimum, is that what we think we know about the sun is only the beginning layers in the outer part of an onion, basically. So very interesting paper. I did put the link in our description box if you guys want to check this article out for yourself and reread this and really go. I just kind of skimmed it. I didn't go over everything, but the figures are here, the examples are here. You can see the images for yourself and take a look, and tell me what you think in the comments section as well. But I wanted to shout out David Birch, the Starman out there in UK. He's the one that brought this article to my attention on Twitter, and I thought this was worth sharing just because it's not a lot of time where I find a lot of articles that really dig deep into the true science of the corona. Again, our critics are going to claim that, oh, it's a simulation, it's this, it's that, but that's why I provided this link, so you can show them that there are other studies out there besides this new one that show the same results when it comes to plasma emissions. So interesting, especially with what's going on right now with the sun impacting CME. We're expecting at least a G2. Would not be surprised to see a G3, possibly even stronger. Again, it just depends on how fast these solar wind speeds come in. And one more thing I want to mention about this upcoming possible G3 storm. If indeed we see high solar wind speeds with that thick of a plasma density, we're going to see the cosmic radiation rates around Earth drop like a rock. I mean, possibly for the first time, drop as low as at 0% or lower. Last time we had a high solar wind speed event, it brushed away so much cosmic rays around Earth that the levels actually dropped as low as 1.2%. So, with a density cloud as thick as what we're expecting, high solar wind speeds, one's got to expect we could see the lowest reading of cosmic radiation dosage rates since the beginning of this current solar minimum that we're coming out of and heading into this next predicted to be weak solar max. And right now, with everything that's going on and the Milankovitch cycle that's happening too as well, coinciding with this by 2024, I really feel like that this solar cycle is going to mirror solar cycle 24. A lot of scientists have called that this prediction of solar cycle 25 to be even or maybe slightly above, but pretty close to the same as 24. And I feel like that we're on track to see that. What's going to be interesting moving forward is the strength of the magnetic field and how strong and how weak it gets. Valentina Sarkova is probably one of the best sources for the sun's magnetic field lines and everything about the sun, solar dynamo theory. So go to solargsm.com. Mari is the administrator of the website, the creator. She is putting everything in order. Everything you want to know about Valentina, her work, her papers, her videos, everything is on this website. So get familiar with her work, because it's not just her that are talking about magnetic fields of the sun and everything. There's a lot more research happening. And what's encouraging to me about this being accepted in regular science, and people stop calling it pseudoscience, is that we're starting to see results from studies that aren't exactly the same and came out in different time periods. So it's good to see the correlation, the time gaps, and it's showing us that new research continues to emerge, and we continue to learn new things about our sun. Speaking of seismic activity, we've been in a little bit of unrest. We've had CMEs, we've had coronal holes. March 9th, we had a volcano explosion of about 50,000 feet. Now, we have seen some high solar winds. KP indices have been up and down, but nothing major. But part of the sun's lower activity as well comes with seismic activity. And here we have one at 50,000 feet on March 8th and 9th of 2022. The largest sent volcanic ash up to 50,000 feet. There was 2 eruptions, actually several, which drifting west and towards the main island. Again, the alert level is at 3 out of 5, so it's minor activity eruption event. Now, it is true at 55,000 feet that this can have impact on a climate situation. Usually just the local, not so much regional, especially when it comes to the volume. And right now, this is just a minor activity alert. So this is not something that's going to cause a year without a summer by any means. And moving on here to this next significant winter storm. But after looking at the GFS, I'm beginning to wonder if this storm is losing a little bit of punch. And let me explain. Bomb Cyclone has been thrown around on all the mainstream media websites today, but it does show a huge strengthening of this storm. And let's get into it. Overnight, Saturday night, or early Saturday morning, I should say, snow begins to fall across most of northern New York, central New York, and western New York, across Pennsylvania, northwestern parts, most of Ohio, minus the northwestern part of Ohio, through southeastern Ohio into Kentucky. Tennessee also will see snow from this, all the way down into Louisiana, folks. Snow showers from this storm system. So a huge drop in the jet stream. Now, if this is that predicted polar vortex break, the weakness, this was not as strong as I thought it was going to be. But we are seeing snow pretty far south with this particular system. But here's what interests me the most. A couple days ago, this particular storm was doing more of a rotational situation, almost like a nor'easter, and it brought heavier snow more inland of New York. Well, that has kind of changed, and it's just like this sweeping cold front from west to east now, instead of this rotation that would consider this to be a nor'easter. So this storm is booking it. Now look at it here. It does make that transition here, but that's all the way out of Maine and near Nova Scotia. So this storm is going to curl up into Canada, is what this, yeah. But the development for it to become a nor'easter is now happening much later. In previous models, this thing looked like it was already a nor'easter off the coast of Jersey. That's not the case anymore. So I think for central New York, North Country New York, and western New York, I think this will taper down the snow total significantly. What we're expected between 5 to 9 inches in areas like where Mari and I are at here near Lake George and the other upper part of New York, that 5 to 9 could just be a 3 to 5 at this point. No real significant heavy snow for a long, long period of time as this system books it out of here. Now, if you live in southern parts of New York, by midday Saturday to the evening parts, I'm not saying the snow can't pick up, but like I said, it's possible to see 3 to 5 inches, maybe 6 in some areas where I was just mentioning. But western New York and central New York are not going to get the heavy snow that was probably once projected. So with that being said, if this storm is developing into a bomb cyclone further ahead than once thought, then that would definitely keep the snow totals in check, which I'm totally fine with that. We've had our share of snow this year on the East Coast. So Baltimore, D.C., you guys are going to look at some wintry precipitation. Atlantic City, along the eastern seaboard here into New England. Boston, also looking at chance for some heavy snow at some point as this rain line changes over to freezing precipitation. And this thing's out of here by evening. Some lake effect snow is possible across New York. On Sunday, just lake effect, cold air remaining in the northern plains, the Great Lakes in the northeast. Again, more lake effects possible on Monday, March 14th. Another clipper system moving across the Great Lakes, staying pretty much north, but it'll be battling a warm front by March 15th. That's Tuesday. So we're going to get a mixed precipitation, and spring is trying to happen a little bit here in the south, pushing its way all the way up into the northeast, and some nice weather on the way for most of the country if you live in the middle part, Midwest, southern, and east and northeastern part. But we see that cold front dipping down once again in the northwestern part of the United States. BC and Alberta also going to be impacted by some pretty atmospheric river looking like features in the northwest. Again, warm front trying to really get things going here for spring. Lots of rain coming our way in the Ohio Valley into the northeast, across the south into the Gulf. That cold air is staying up north, the northern plain states, maybe the northern Great Lakes. But then look at this, March 21st, cold enough again to snow in northern New York and most of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine before another low pressure system. And you can see the ridge here, guys. You can see the ridge. This is the ridge and fridge. The ridge is really big, okay? So we're going to have temperatures racing up onto the northeast coast, starting probably somewhere right around the 23rd of March, according to this GFS outlook. And we could see behind it some pretty cold air as well. But I wanted to point out the dip in the jet stream. How much money we want to bet with this jet stream dip like this on March 23rd? We have high pressure in Greenland. I'll bet money on it. I'll bet money on it. No, I won't. I don't have any money to bet on it, but I bet you it's there. Let's look. March 23rd. Well, hold on. That's not the region. Hold on. Where's it at? Eastern. Yes, I see all that, but I want. Okay, here we go. Found it. Yep. Well, it's close. Look at it. I mean, we have high pressure right over the main part of Greenland. There is a low pressure system right off to the east of Greenland, but nonetheless, we have that high pressure right over Greenland, and that is when we usually see what we call a Greenland block. And that's when the jet stream does this unusual dip. Now, this is March 23rd, and we're talking about temperatures across the midsection of North America dropping below average here. Northern parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, right across the farm belt of this country. This is why I think this spring could be a tricky one for the plant. Lots of rain, though, coming to the East Coast and Northeast by Thursday. Of course, that warm air and that cold front right behind it gets things cooled off and really in a hurry, too, for the Northeast by the 25th. But again, spring-like warm patterns are trying to infiltrate. But again, we got another ridge and fridge here. High pressure behind it. High pressure behind it with the snow in the northern parts. But again, ridge and fridge. Temperatures racing up the East Coast. Warm up again coming at the end of the month. So all the snow that we're getting this weekend definitely would be thawed out within a week or so. But at the end of this run, we see high pressure and another dip in the jet stream that looks like it's trying to reach a little bit further south. Let's quickly go back to our NOAA map. This is for tonight, tomorrow. The winter storm warning in the bright pink is where we expect winter-like conditions. Now, we're still going to see gusty winds. We're still going to see heavy snow. It just really depends on the timing of when this bomb cyclone kicks in. If it kicks in like GFS is suggesting, we could just see 5 inches of snow where once was forecasted 5 to 9. So the likely likelihood of this looking like a bomb cyclone in the New York region and the Boston region is not that likely. In fact, it's going to be past Maine according to this latest forecast. So we'll watch it. We still have about over 24 hours before this storm actually takes place where I am located. But this is the boxes. The pink is the winter storm warnings, and the blue are the watches and advisories. And of course, there are wind advisories all along the coast. So we'll be watching for coastal flooding, as there will be heavy rain on the side of this storm where there is not freezing temperatures. So let's look at temperatures. This is Saturday. There's our cold front pushing down deep into the south. Look at that. Middle of March, 24 degrees south of Dallas near San Antonio. No thanks. So hopefully your heat kicks on just fine. Again, nowhere near like what we had last year in Texas in February. Again, cold air dipping all the way south to the panhandle of Florida on March 13th. So that cold air, again, this is that bizarre dip in the jet stream, usually indicates, like I just showed you, a Greenland block, which makes the jet stream do its crazy funky thing and go as far south as it does. Then we get around the 14th, 15th, trying to get some normalcy here. Some nice warm temperatures across the southern region starting to build up in Florida, along the East Coast, South Carolina, North Carolina region, and even in Ohio by the middle part of March. Might start to feel like spring. I know spring training baseball is starting up for some of you folks out there. And just 60s and 70s. Kind of nice weather here at March 16th in the middle of the month. And then we start to see a little bit difference in the pattern. And there's our ridge and fridge. The warmer temperatures are going to move to the east and up the northeast. Behind it is going to be colder Arctic air. The question is, how much colder? And right now, the GFS models are not showing me anything that would say this is drastic. It could be, a dangerous situation. If anything, we're just going to see below average temperatures with these next few cold fronts. As you can see, these ridge and fridges don't have a much fridge on the back until we get these Greenland block features in the jet stream. March 23rd, just like we showed you, and here is the high Greenland block right here, and it's bringing cold air. So let's see how far south this Greenland block is responsible for Arctic air, and guess what? Not very south at all. So weak Greenland block right now, and that probably has to do with the fact that there is a low pressure system so close to it as well. Getting towards the end of March, it is really starting to feel like spring, but hold the phone, hold the phone. We do see the potential for more Arctic air to come across. Here's another reason why I think our snow totals will be lower. This is what GFS thinks we're going to have on the ground by Tuesday, March 15th. We have snow flurries and showers on Sunday and Monday. So again, these totals are way less, maybe in the northern parts of New York, in the higher elevations of Vermont and New Hampshire, but we are not going to see any major, at this point anyway, any major snow accumulations outperform. Now, if this bomb cyclone had gotten started in this region right here, then yes, I could see there being a chance. But since this bomb cyclone is really going to be forming off of the northeast part of the United States, at this point, I just don't see enough evidence to show this one being outperforming. And hopefully I'm right, because I'm really done with shoveling snow this year. So the forecast of a reverse spring could only mean to me right now at this point, we're not going to see blizzards in April all month, but we could see lots of moisture and we could see cool conditions. Not so much cold, but cool conditions. I want to look at one more thing before we move on here. I want to show some ocean temperatures as well. Because I care about the farmers, I want to talk about what kind of moisture can we expect across the farmland of the United States. Kansas, Nebraska, Dakotas, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana. What kind of moisture are we looking at here, right? Folks in New Mexico as well. Several days with nothing. Here's the 14th, nothing. Finally getting some rain across the south, but not really in the farmland where we need the moisture. Still dry. Wednesday, March 16th. Some sprinkles across the farmlands here. Nothing major, folks. some snow, some light showers. Then a low pressure system forms just east of Nebraska and Kansas, helping out Missouri and eastern parts of Iowa, Illinois, and also Arkansas, but not much help for our friends in the central part of the United States, from North Dakota all the way down to Texas. More dry weather for this region through March 19th. High pressure dominating, keeping things dry across the central part of the United States. And then a potential storm, some much needed moisture, a low pressure system forming right over where we need it the most. Matt Bros, I know you're happy about this. But you got to wait all the way till March 22nd to get any kind of significant moisture. And it's going to be a nasty one. It's going to be windy. It's going to be rainy. And it's going to be snowy. And it's going to get cold. But lots of rain distributed through this system on March 23rd. Again, the cold front, oddly shaped, thanks to the Greenland block. But again, temperatures rebound just nicely across the United States by March 25th. But this cold front in the northwest will be the next system that we'll watch. And it might be the next chance for precipitation. But this time it looks like it's going to be in Kansas and Oklahoma, and not so much Nebraska and the Dakotas. Snow in North Dakota. But again, this indicates to me that there is a lot of swing still to come. Just because maybe your area is starting to see spring-like conditions, I still have concerns for the parts of the country that are growing crops right now. As I speak to my good friend Matt out there in Nebraska about his concerns and what we could be facing, and just how late the plant could be is yet to be seen. So temperatures appear to be looking like it's getting closer to spring, but we still have to watch through April, as a reverse spring is a trick. It makes you feel like things are heading in the right direction, and then things just stall out and don't get warmer. If anything, they get cooler for a little while before finally kicking into mid-May, late May, before we might start seeing normal spring-like temperatures. I'm here in the Northeast, the Great Lakes, Northern Plains, obvious areas. But it could spread as far south as Columbus, Ohio, Indianapolis, Indiana, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Across those regions there, we could see cooler than average temperatures in Atlantic City and northwards. Across that line right here, we could see below average temperatures through April and May, which doesn't help the farming region here for Indiana. Look, Indiana's cornfields, that's all it is. So is Illinois. Ohio, corn and soybeans. So there is not going to be a lack of rain in this region right here during the spring or winter. So not only are we going to be battling temperatures, but we're going to be battling moisture. We're going to be battling work conditions in the fields. Temperatures in the Arctic, I just don't see any evidence that's going to show this extreme cold Arctic blast. Still 20s reaching to Texas by the 12th is pretty insane. And then it kind of recharges over Greenland. The colder air stays up north in the Arctic Circle. But we do see a little bit of Arctic air trying to make its way back to the border by March 23rd. Again, we will continue to monitor the situation, as lots can change. You're not really supposed to trust these forecast models 10 days out anyway, but we do see a pretty decent sized cold front trying to get its act together on the northwestern side of the United States, with nice temperatures too at the end of the month. It's definitely going to feel like spring for a lot of you guys up and down that eastern seaboard, across parts of southern Ohio, northern parts of Kentucky, and West Virginia as well. Let's take a look at some ocean temperatures. La Nina is alive and well at negative 0.923. That's moderate. It's not strong. It's not weak. It's there. It's moderate. Another one that we're watching is the North Atlantic. It continues to drop. The North Atlantic, as you know, is the northern part of our planet, and during the spring and summer months, we start to see temperatures go up. That's the hope, right? Well, we are seeing temperatures continuing to drop ever since New Year's Eve. We thought we were going to see a little bit of a rebound right around my birthday of January, but as you can see, past that January peak, we have now seen levels below baseline. Currently in the North Atlantic, we are -0.01 0.103. So below baseline, not by a lot, just by a little, and trending down and continuing to look as if we will see drops in the temperature in the North Atlantic. So a lot of stuff we're watching, folks. I do anticipate a live broadcast on Sunday. I'm not sure if it's going to be 10 in the morning. It could be earlier than that. It could be at noon. But really, I'm just going to have to pay attention here to the next couple of days with this CME and this plasma wave and find out just exactly when this thing is going to arrive. But I've already heard reports from other people out there that they're expecting it in the 2 o'clock p.m. window on the East Coast, possibly earlier than that. And just based on the speed of this wind, of this plasma that we're seeing thrown at Earth, just by the speed, and we see it accelerate, especially when it gets to Earth, as it expands. It just makes me wonder, are we downplaying this by calling this just a possible G2? Like I said, the plasma density is what concerns me about this for seismic activity. I'm not worried about grid failure or nothing like that. It could cause some electrical issues, but the main concern I have with this plasma wave is definitely going to be seismic activity. I want to say hello to a few folks out there in the chat tonight. Knife Collector, Shirley Davis, TJ Smith, good to see you guys. Anthony Taylor, hello to my lovely wife, Mari. Good to see you, girl. Like always, she's always holding it down for me. Also, hello to Jerome from Rochester. Hey, my son was out that way last night. His band Rockstead played in Rochester last night. So, yeah, there was a Riley in your town. How about that? Brian Orso, good to see you. Also, Dorothy Rose, also a pleasure to see you as well. Long time no see. And it's been a while since we broadcasted, so thank you all to our patient viewers out there. Knife Collector, our loyalty to you is we're not worthy. Thank you so much, sir, for continuing to support our channel and be here and help the cause by keeping things on a civil manner in the chat. What's that? Patricia Clayton, of course. Hello. Thank you very much for being here. Lisa and Arnold. Arnold checking in with us. Good evening to you, sir, as well. Matthew McDonald, greetings. One of my followers from Twitter. And a whole lot of other people. I see the chat's been pretty active tonight. Guys, I love it. Please leave us a comment. Tell us what you'd like to see us cover more on the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Will it be more prepping stuff, more growing material, more reports on volcanoes and earthquakes? I know we've been saying this. We sound like a broken record. We're getting ready to launch the channel, but the content will be coming, folks. Things are settling down more and more for us, and we're just sharpening our research, doing interviews, and trying to come up with new ways to communicate our message so that it reaches everyone possible out there. Check out our Teespring store. That link is in the description box also. If you'd like to become a longtime supporter of our channel to help the cause, join us for $1 on Patreon. That dollar goes a long way, especially when the masses come over to join, and that'll give us the ability to continue to run the channel at the level it needs to be maintained at. This stuff isn't free with all the web hosting and all the plugins and everything that we want to create for this community to become just basically a huge resource about truth, because there's so much more to go over than anyone could possibly imagine, folks. That's all I got to say about that. All right, that's going to do it for me for tonight. Stay safe out there, and I will see you guys on Sunday. I will do a live broadcast. Even if it's a nothing burger, I'll still get online and say it was a nothing burger. I overhyped it. Phooey on me. But at the same time, I think it's something that we should keep an eye on. It'd be interesting, especially if no seismic activity happens, if we do get the density that we are expecting. Till next time, folks, be safe out there, and we will talk soon.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.